According to Steve Jobs, it just turned 8 o'clock, so we will call the October Economic Development Committee meeting to order and start out with rolling the call.
Fred Mundering.
Here.
Dave Boucher.
Here.
Steve Brenner.
Here.
Bill Jenks.
Here.
And Keith Barrett.
Here.
That sounds like a quorum to me. Are there any public comments?
No, just that it's the late Steve Jobs, but that's it.
What's that?
It's the late Steve Jobs. He's not, you said according,
It's artificial intelligence. He's not going anywhere.
he's not going anywhere. Okay.
So there are no public comments, and we will go into our agenda. The first item we have is a presentation by Rob Hain and Stefano Folino in regards to 1714 State Hill Road. The meeting is yours.
Okay. Did you want to just
Do
start?
you know everybody here? Does everybody know each other?
I think we've all met at least once before. Rob Hain.
Yes.
Rob Hain from Burke Surveying and Engineering. You guys obviously all know Sal.
How you doing?
Yeah, Sal, you want me to get started? Just
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
So, we're looking at a possibility for development on the property at 1714 State Hill Road. If you could bring up the sketch plan. So, essentially this is the Berkshire, currently the Berkshire restaurant, formerly the Honors Restaurant, on State Hill Road. Studies exist currently developed with the restaurant building and a parking lot. What we're looking at doing is the possibility of doing multi-family development, like an apartment building, to replace the restaurant building. As you can see here, the light shaded gray areas are essentially the existing macadam areas. The slightly darker shaded areas are expansion of that existing macadam to provide some additional parking. The dark box with the honeycomb hatch in the middle is representative of what the new building would look like. Essentially, it's going to cover the existing building footprint and expand just slightly out to the south, but there will be a cafe on the ground floor in the front to preserve the restaurant use there, but it would be much smaller in size. There'd be a gym and a fitness center and other utilities provided on the ground floor, as well as the southern half of the building would provide some parking, basically at surface level, but it would be structured underneath a portion of the apartment building itself. So
The cafe is a public thing or just for the
the
restaurant?
cafe would be public. The fitness center and everything else would be an amenity of the building itself. So pretty much we're looking at 144 units with the layout that we have before you here. There's continued access off of State Hill Road. We're looking at proposing an additional access off of Valley Green Circle. As that's private, we'll still have to work out the details with the owner of Valley Green there. But this is essentially what we're looking at here. What's that? Yeah, actually, you bring up the rendering. So we have this is just an approximate idea of a picture of what the building might look like. Just wanted to give you guys again, some sort of a glimpse to imagine what this might look like. This would probably be like from the side, from the Valley Green side, as opposed to the front. And again, if they're, with the continued commercial use, we'd have to figure out what that storefront might look like for the cafe. But this is essentially what, the apartment building might look like down there.
And that many stories?
No, we're not entirely sure on how many stories it's gonna be. We're still in very early concepts, but this is, a building or structure of similar type that you can get a graphical representation of what it might look like.
Any proposed time frame?
So at this point, we would have to request an overlay district be implemented here. All of the uses are not permitted under commercial use, but it's been a restaurant forever, and these type of restaurants just are too big in this day and age. So everything that goes in there is struggling. So I've helped the current owner try to find a buyer for it. We had a car wash, which, you know, we were in front of you guys for that. We agree, and I know the township feels this property is way too valuable for another car wash. Plus, I don't think there's that many cars in Berks County, but this is just too many. But in essence, there's no restaurant owners who want it or want to pay for what it's worth. I mean, you have valuable land right on State Hill Road. I think it's 3 acres.
Yes.
3 acres. It's all paved. So we feel like this would be a good proposed use, and everyone who approaches us with, who approaches the seller with an idea, it tends to be some sort of multifamily commercial on the bottom. So that seems to be what's needed in this area. So with this proposal, we would request that an overlay district similar to the one that's already in place be implemented here. So with
Chris, what are the logistics of that?
Well, I would like to know more, I don't know if Michelle has done any analysis on this or not, but if this were to be added to one of the existing development areas that we've already identified, would the dimensional regulations and the use regulations, to the extent they affect density, would they allow this project, or would it have to be some tweaked version in order to achieve the outcome that they're looking for?
They meet the minimum lot size because that's 2 acres of the current overlay. I've not seen a detailed enough site plan to look at the other requirements. I mean, paved coverage in the overlay is typically limited to 10%. You would get credit for the structured parking that you're proposing underneath. I think there potentially would be conditional use approval, and that the whole first floor would not necessarily be a commercial use. It sounds like it would be portion tenant use only for the fitness center. The other question there is, how does the committee feel about our lowest maximum height in the overlay districts is 75 feet? This property's in the C1 zoning district, it's the underlying zoning district. Maximum building height in that zoning district is 40 feet. So we've already heard a lot of concern over the car wash that is being redone.
That's 120 feet, right?
It looks like it, but no, it's
We
actually
would
only,
use all of it. It wouldn't just be.
yeah, I mean, to
Freeman.
be
How many feet is that?
38,
Oh my god. Vertical lumberyard.
yes. So, I mean, I think if, when I met with Rob and Stefano, the conversation was, this can't happen by right because of the zoning district it's located in. Come to the Economic Development Committee, see if they like the idea, but then we would have to work out logistics for either creating an overlay, adding this to the existing overlay, and knowing that this isn't a different neighborhood than where the other overlay districts are. Do you wanna keep the same requirements? Do you want to slightly tweak them? And I would think building height is one of the things you potentially wanna consider, because directly behind it is a residential zoning district.
So right behind it is that Valley Green, those apartments there. That's directly behind this area.
And across the street, there's the other apartments.
Woodland Plaza.
Woodland apartments across the street.
But it also backs up to Woodland Road, which are single family homes. Would we anticipate resident backlash?
5 floors, 10 feet.
I mean,
They said they're not permitted.
ironically, Woodland Plaza is in a commercial zoning district. Actually, no, I'm sorry, I think that is R3.
Yeah, and it doesn't back up to Woodland. So there's a buffer between Woodland, homes, and then
There's a forested area, and you're,
basically if you take out Valley Green, there's 3 homes that would abut this. It's my office and then 3 homes behind it.
I mean, if we would put an overlay in place, we have to advertise and go through that whole
Yeah,
process.
right, I mean, in terms of the process, once we, if the committee wants to support the outcome, then I would draft an amendment that would make that possible. I think my preference would be to add it to an existing overlay, or to, well, I mean, the overlays are defined geographically, so it probably makes sense to identify overlay district number 4, because we already have 3, because, you know, then it would be a specifically geographically defined area. But anyway, it would be an amendment to the zoning ordinance, and we go through a process, takes about 90 days to get through that if you want to go down that path.
And how tall would this be?
I think you have control over that at the moment, because we'd have to
I
draft
mean,
like,
as it exists, 5 stories, 50 feet.
Again, we haven't fleshed that out entirely yet, we just, you know,
But if it were 5 stories, how tall would it be?
if it were 5 stories, it would be probably about 50 to 60 feet.
is there a threshold it has to be for the project to work?
We didn't dig in that far.
So we still have to figure out the internal room size, you know, the apartment sizes and hallways and everything to figure out how it would fit within the footprint that we have shown. At this point, all we have is a concept, which is why I said it's difficult to say how many floors it would be because, you know, the number of parking spaces provided on site defines how many units you can have. So,
Other than the car wash, what's the tallest building over there?
That's the tallest one.
Sovereign.
Moscow's in the same district?
Buckingham Palace.
No,
No.
so C2 across the street is a different zoning district, and their maximum building height, I believe, is 60.
There's
So
that
like the
newer
new
hotel.
hotel over there,
That's all totally different zoning
I'm
district.
just talking about height-wise in that area.
You have a hodgepodge, like, you're correct, Sovereign's building's pretty tall. The Crown Plaza is 3 stories, the towers are a little bit higher, Radisson,
1100 Berkshire Boulevard is what, 4 or 5 stories?
that's Sovereign, Santander.
Have you
No,
indicated how
That's
many
separate,
apartments?
that's separate.
Oh,
That's not the flash views, that's the.
Chris, is that your own?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's 3 or 4 stories.
Traveler's building is 4
4
stories.
Ron, to answer your question, we looked at how many parking spaces there are, and it roughly translates to about 144 units. How those are configured, how high, how big, we don't know yet.
How does the possibility of the roundabout fit?
I've made Rob and Stefano aware of that, I mean, PennDOT's still in their concept
Oh,
design. So, I gave Rob contact information for Donald Lurch to have the conversation as to if they take anything from that property by eminent domain, what does that look like?
They can only turn right out of that parking lot too.
They're only supposed to turn right out of that parking lot.
Yeah, right.
But if you had a roundabout.
But if you have 144 apartments,
There's another back exit to that parking lot,
There's not,
not where the old Ponderosa's, there's not another exit?
It's Green Valley Road.
It's private.
Are you dating yourself?
I date myself by restaurants. I go by the original seafood shanty.
Well, how does the rest of the committee feel about it? What are your thoughts?
that's not there now.
Is the seafood,
Right, so
you.
we would be proposing that
How
access
big
just
would you want
mainly,
the overlay
number
district
one,
to be?
because it
you
would
wanted to
alleviate
cover the mattress store, which
volume
might
on the
result in
access
them
directly to
tearing
State
that
Road.
down and putting
And emergency
apartment
services would
complex
likely want a
there,
separate
that
access
strip mall
in
next to
case
it.
the one gets blocked.
I think that's a good point. I mean, we might wanna look at the neighborhood more broadly in terms of redevelopment.
And that was what my assumption was when we talked at our site meeting, was we wouldn't necessarily add this to the existing overlays, but potentially create a whole new one for the west side of State Road.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
And there's other retail and commercial uses there that, well, retail's, I don't wanna say it's failing, but it's not thriving.
It's not
Right.
robust.
It's not robust, that is correct. So, there may be future development opportunities, in the vicinity that could be included in your overlay district.
I think that is true.
As you go up Penn Avenue, it's what's called Town Center.
On the south side of Penn Avenue, it's Town Center. On the north side of Penn Avenue, it's C1. Same
And the
thing.
original concept of Town Center was that it was backing up toward residential and needed to be kind of a blend, you know, a transition as opposed to, you know, start on.
Workforce strong.
And what we're talking about here is going to create that, you know, more stark difference. So we need to be careful.
It is, but I think to some extent you already have that on that side of State Hall Road, because it's shopping center, strip mall, offices, restaurant, Grove Dental.
There's only one or two houses on State Hill Road.
Yeah, remember there was the one at the corner of Vista that came to us with the request to rezone, there's that one, and,
It's half house, half solar.
yeah. Shirley Williams property.
That's not basically that insurance company.
I could see a lot of that just reopening for redevelopment of that whole area.
The question is,
Yeah,
what does the borough want that to look like?
I think we could look, you know,
I'd like to just ask a question about the roundabout. This roundabout is coming, and we're having these discussions about enlarging the potential footprint for retail development and single-family homes or apartments. How do we, in advance, or do we need to bring PennDOT in to figure out how 143 cars plus all the other stuff is gonna happen on that corner when we can only turn one direction?
How much space is needed?
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, how much can you can put a lot there, but how do you get in and out without being in a traffic jam 24/7?
Have room for the trucks to roll over.
So generally, most traffic studies indicate that you get a lot more traffic from a commercial use than you do from a residential use.
Right.
So you'll have heavy traffic in the morning and the afternoon, like most residential use, people leaving, going to work and coming home. But like a restaurant use, conceivably you'd have more traffic throughout the entire day, and especially into the evenings, than you would from a residential development.
So what I'm curious about is if you go ahead with this project, would you be working with PennDOT in advance
Absolutely.
to figure out what ultimately will be something they won't tell us yet, but they'll tell you how the traffic's gonna be configured?
I don't know that they would tell me something they wouldn't tell you, but we are actively, after this meeting, I'm gonna be reaching out to them tomorrow to set up called a scoping meeting to discuss the details of this and hopefully get some of their feedback on the roundabout project to see how this access, that we're, and the development that we're talking, all the concerns that you specifically mentioned.
Because you'd hate to be in a position of building it and then having to tear it down.
Right.
well, it seems in addition to the traffic study, if they're going to take some of the property by eminent domain, that could change your feasibility study in terms of what you're gonna be able to build.
I
So,
agree.
mean,
I think this is a little far away from, is it Woodland, the next intersection down there? Well, it's a little far from Woodland that I don't see it being directly impacted by the roundabout, but again, that does depend on what their ultimate game plan was.
Yeah, I mean, before you come too far down the road, you better find that out.
Nothing.
Absolutely.
What PennDOT will tell you
Very-
is the beauty of a roundabout is that there's no red light. Traffic doesn't stop. It doesn't back up. So the capacity, I think, is okay, but you need to be mindful of what we recently went through on Monday. If there's traffic concerns on the road, drivers need to find an alternative.
The other purpose is to overall widen State Hall Road, so they're taking right.
On your point about,
whether there's roundabout.
the transition to single-family homes, I mean, one of the things that I think we might anticipate is sort of the discussion we had on the other project, with the apartment building that the neighbors were concerned about the visual aspect of what they would be seeing out their windows, and height is, I think, the biggest factor. So, and I think the decision by the borough about how tall structures could be within this new overlay district along State Hill is important because of the residential behind it. What the right answer to that question is, I don't know.
Well,
I wouldn't mind
just
looking at this over a car wash.
historically, our first overlay was what is become knitting mills, and the height was not considered to be as critical an issue because it was located in this residential was so close by.
To your question, Fred, is how does the committee feel about that? From my opinion, conceptually, yeah, I just think there's still a lot of outstanding issues and questions. And they need to do some work on before the committee. I mean, I think part of this is, are they gonna lose some property? What's the traffic situation? I think there's some in concept, but there's still some issues.
But regardless of what they want, should we be considering it overlay?
I think
Yeah,
so.
I thank them
I think you
for
should.
prompting the
We wanna promote-
conversation,
we wanna
but
promote development in the area.
Yes.
it doesn't rise and fall.
But then I think the question then is how far do you extend that?
Absolutely.
And it may be, if this project requires that, it may be prudent to look at that whole area and say, let's expand that, so that maybe the mattress store will go or something like that.
I would think you'd wanna look at the whole west side of State Hole Road and analyze, and I did this to some extent, this is the only 3 acre property, everything else on that whole side, to the Spring Township line is sub 3 acres. So what's your cap for lot size? Because to some extent, that is gonna limit what a developer can do. They need land to be able to meet parking and build building and everything.
Well, we've always been very, what we like to think is user-friendly with commercial development. Because we know it's the commercial properties that pay the bills, so we need to intensify what we can do with commercial. However, our main purpose in life is to promote a residential area for people to raise their families and all that. So I'm in favor of looking at the west side of State Hill Road as a more intensive development, but I'm very concerned about height because of the residences behind it.
Well, are we not limited to, I see this monster development from the project they're going to do, which is residential, kind of sedate, people come and go. If you start moving up into more retail, you still have this setback problem. You can't go any further back than where they are now because behind it is all the other single-family homes or apartments already. So if you have these large retail operations going on the west side all the way down towards the car wash, you end up with an incredible amount of potential traffic and no way to stack it up, because you can't go any deeper. You can only put a soccer shop and an Indian restaurant and a dry cleaners where the number of people is like 5 or 6 a day. When you start getting really intense, I would think anybody would want to put something there would want to have a footprint that would allow for a lot of traffic. And then you get to the old, well, you have a roundabout, you don't have to stop. Well, you may not have to stop, but you'll never get the hell out of there because there's so much traffic on State Hill Road.
I think if you look at, if you go and sit outside of Viva there, where that whole area is, and you look at how many cars are coming in and out of the Viva complex, the residential complex, it's a lot less than you think, and it's a lot less of a burden on the school than you would think. It's, even with, not many kids, mostly young professionals living there, the traffic is not crazy on that road. So I don't foresee even 144 units. I don't know how many units are at the Viva complex, but
280.
46.
so I know it sounds
Are
scary,
you
but
including the townhouses?
No.
Yeah, there's another like 20-ish townhouses back there.
yeah. So even with that many, the traffic impact is not as bad as you might think it is.
And
And
that's
I
what
always
was
tell
felt
people,
there.
I implore you to
I'm
go
not as
sit there.
concerned about your development. I'm concerned with the idea of continuing to develop high-end retail going further down State Hill Road, because it might look good from the air, but if you're trying to get in and out of those properties, it's a lot more difficult than it is for.
Such a shame.
I think that
But
goes
that
to
would-
the,
that
to
would
the
be
argument
good.
for the overlay district, because it allows.
Mixed use.
Mixed
Yeah.
use, yeah.
There's the elephant in the room.
That's allowed now, so the high-end retail is allowed now. With an overlay district, you would have the choice of the retail or the residential, or a mix.
Right.
So
Preferably a
probably,
mix.
preferably a mix, so it might lessen the burden.
Could you guys, I'm obsessed with the height thing.
Yeah,
Could you guys stretch the building and still get an adequate number of parking spaces?
We were actually just talking about that here, so,
Taking a story off there.
yeah, if that's what
Yes.
you prefer, I think then we would just need some, relief with regard to lot coverage and stuff like that. If you prefer a longer, shorter building,
So what needs them to try to
or even multiple.
What's
that?
What needs them, 3 stories?
Right, so maybe one in the back.
Well, I think
Yeah.
it's like
One
car
large.
wash.
39 feet.
And a lot more traffic.
Yeah.
I would also ask that,
Abomination.
as you get into any discussions with PennDOT, that we we approve it.
Generally, it's going to be an application, they send out an invite to the borough. Do you want the EDC or you personally to be copied, or?
No, just send
I
it to
would
the
Greg
borough.
Richardson, I mean, I would think it should go to TPD or traffic
Okay,
engineer.
I'll make sure that he gets included on the list.
I think you'd get a lot more support if it's local.
Okay.
I think that's the message.
Yeah.
A lot less opposition by the neighbors.
Where's the,
Colin parking?
where's the chair?
Committee, any other comments or questions?
Can I say something?
Do you guys have any parting comments or whatever?
Well, I think right now, what we're looking for is if the committee's in favor of analyzing an overlay district, I mean, that's pretty much what, like, as Chris and Michelle said, it's gonna be a long process to go through that. And we would tailor whatever development we're proposing to work with whatever you guys come up with. If you wanna restrict the building height to 50 feet or, you know, or 60 feet or whatever you guys wanna see there, we can modify our development to work with that to the best of our ability.
There is a motion on the agenda to approve the solicitor working to prepare a draft. I don't think it's a bad idea for Chris to start having the bones of that ordinance together, and we could do a fill in the blank.
Well, one question, I think, is to confirm that the consensus is to have this overlay district encompass the entirety of the west side of State Hill Road within the borough of Wyomissing. Is that?
I would do from Woodland to the Spring Township colony line.
What's the downside?
Cause that takes it all the way out past,
Takes it to Colony Park from Woodland Road
yeah, to that bank.
to the Spring Township line.
What's the downside?
The downside is,
That's that.
is there anything that's already there that you don't wanna change?
The problem I got is, once you get past, I'm trying to think of a road name.
Shelton,
It's
Manuel,
right
and
off
Vista.
Right off of, well, what's the left at the smoke shop there? Vista?
No, it's Winger.
Yeah,
I mean, you have a lot of houses right there, so my concern would be more so for those residents in the hills where you're gonna, if somewhere down the road, well, when I'm no longer involved, someone wants to sell those properties and start putting up 40-foot buildings or 50-foot buildings, those houses are right there.
To a minimum lot requirement.
yeah, if your minimum lot size is 2 acres, they're never gonna meet that. Those lots are like 0.2 to 0.5.
As long as we have,
People can assemble lots.
They could.
Did that right.
So if we do that whole side, if where the mattress store is, if they wanna do something, they'd have to take some of those.
No, that's a little over a 2 acre lot.
Is it really?
Yeah,
And that's only 3 acres of Berkshire restaurant?
just laid out differently.
How tall is
Boy, it looks
the
bigger.
temple there? The synagogue?
I have no idea.
not very,
That's not.
Maybe 2 stories? I'm guessing
I used
25
to across the
max.
street, but that's not very
I
tall.
just looked at Google, that was huge.
Well, let me ask the committee this, is the consensus, can we say that the consensus is that we are not opposed to the project with
No, absolutely
appropriate
not.
modifications?
Correct.
So, having said that, would one of the members of the committee be going to make a motion that we, hit the start button with Chris to,
I'll make a motion that
Begin to
the
develop
solicitor
an
to
overlay.
create a new overlay zoning district applicable to the west side of State Hill Road. Second.
we have a motion and a second, are there any questions or comments on that motion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so I think I can summarize that the committee is receptive to the idea. We recognize our obligation to create an overlay district that will be sensitive to the surrounding properties. So we will start that. You guys will conduct some conversations with PennDOT about access that we would like to be involved with. And we look forward to a successful conclusion for all of us here.
Thank you.
very much.
Anything with the planning commission that we should be doing?
Any party comments, committee?
Well, what is the depth of your, do you have a dimension on it?
So 500 feet, I think, on the, along Valley Green.
Try and hold it.
Yeah, any,
Any borough council member can.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You're 500 feet from the right of way state held to the back of the lot.
to the back of the lot on the short side, so it's actually longer on the left side than it is on the right side, but yeah, it's 500 feet deep.
Yep, 437 and 192, so it's over 600.
Right, and the rear line, extends straight up across the adjoining lot where the mattress warehouse is and stuff. So those lots kind of get shorter as you go along there, or at least for the next block of development there.
Is the Rite Aid on the separate lot, Michelle, from the church?
That was before my time, so I'd have to go back and look
Yeah.
if that was subdivided or developed
I
together.
don't
I
remember
don't,
it being subdivided.
the Rite Aid and
Rite
the
Aid was
church.
built at the church.
So you're
Rite Aid is
342 on
really
State Hill and
Well,
246
that's
at
where
the
my
rear.
recollection
That thing
is.
really narrows.
It wasn't subdivided.
Which,
This 750.
oh, well, then it's essentially, yeah, just the large body of the property is parallel, but it's just that lane right in the front where it kind of
Go down a little.
So if you,
Yeah,
like,
right
so
there.
essentially, it's like, so there's a stormwater pipe that runs parallel to the property line there and then angles out and connects into the storm sewer on State Hill Road. That carries the water from this site, from Valley Green, and also from the back of, the Reading Estates, or Reading Equities property on the north side of Valley Green there. That all kind of funnels into that. My assumption is that when land planning was done back, when that land planning was done, then they left all that as property at that time.
Michelle, could you ask, I guess, McCarthy to provide some sort of a plan to Chris that shows the dimensions from State Hill Road as they exist? I mean, some of those lots get a lot.
I can
Less
get that
than-
off the aerial view on the tax maps.
All right.
Which is what we were kind of looking at after our
Okay.
site meeting.
That would be fine. Anything else on this subject? All right, looks as though we've reached the point already of, is there any old business coming before us today? Michelle, do you have any updates on other properties we've discussed over the months?
Things are moving forward with the potential sale of the Inn at Reading.
Oh, that'll be a drop in police calls.
There are no lifelines.
Yeah, right.
Timeline?
I mean, they're trying to work out the agreement of sale right now, so I would hope by end of year, early 24, if it does happen. Otherwise, we will have a developer coming to the November meeting to talk about pad site development at the Berkshire Mall.
No, wait, say it again?
Pad site development at the Berkshire Mall.
And where's your Wall Street Journal article?
It's coming, supposedly.
We're running out of October.
I know, the reporter did warn me that because it's going front page, they do a much more methodical editing process, so it can take longer. I'm okay with it. Not
It was the sale of the hotel to another hotel purchaser.
No, it would be redevelopment using our overlay,
For the old hotel that's there.
the Inn at Reading.
Yeah.
Yes, they would get rid of the hotel and do a completely new project.
You doing the Radisson?
Yeah. I've been told that that other hotel entity is looking at buying it or taking it over, but I've not gotten confirmation.
Is there any other old business for us to consider today? And of course, is there any new business? Any new business anyone wants to bring up today? So stay tuned, November should be an interesting meeting as our concerns with the mall property have been well documented, and hopefully this will be a step in the process of solving that riddle.
We're cautiously optimistic.
You know, it's, I think it's very interesting, the potential is for this.
It'll be interesting to see how Bill celebrates.
Well,
We'll see when the bucket goes into the dirt.
it'll be a shorter meeting in the future without him moaning and complaining about the mall, so. We don't have public comments at the back end of the meeting, but I'll ask for them anyhow. Does anybody have anything to say?
My only comment on that is, I think everybody can notice this. That lot particularly has a lot of concrete, asphalt, whatever it is, pavement. So I think that if they wanna do a residential, those 140 parking spaces probably should be, some of them should be converted to just green space, just a thought.
Well, maybe they can put a green roof on the building.
Or roof on the bit.
That's happening.
Yeah, but it's just because everything around there has some green front, everything, and just this particular one is just pavement, that's it.
All right. You're too quiet. Anything to say?
No.
Remarkable. All right, well then we will call the meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
That goes both ways. Did you get your glasses fixed?
Home Depot.
Hey, that's where I get mine.
Amazon.
But then I remember it used to be like 3 for $12. Now it's,
2 for $9.
I know.
Still get it on Amazon.